my sharpening utensil collection. Most of it. First off, we will go over this. Is my Woostoff. This orange grit here is 1,000. The blue is 3,000. The lettering wore off of it the first day I used it when I soaked it. I don't know if it's supposed to do that or not. Then this is a $220 grit whetstone Sun Tiger. These are just El Cheapo Harbor Freight stones. And the grits on them are... Cool thing about them is that they actually come with this nice little carrying case. They tell you the stone color, the grit, diamond light, 3-piece sharpening stone set. They're not the greatest, but they work on axis and a few other things that I need to grind a lot of metal off of. These stones here, they're my Smith. They came off of a tri-set. They were on a black plastic triangle shaped thing. The 1,000 grit, or it's marked fine, but I looked on the side and it said it is 1,000 or 100 or 1,200 grit. I don't know for sure, but it works pretty good. I like it. This one here is a medium grit. I don't remember what the grit count was on it. And this is a rough grit. I think it was 600 on this one. And I believe 800. Don't quote me on those because I do not remember, other than just the white one, the fine one. And these Smith stones are also my oldest ones I have. You can see they're fairly flat. Then this here I use to sharpen. It's my old Samsung phone, the S7. I dropped it a few times. I'm not sure what grit glass would be considered, but it works. Works really well. And then Here's a rock I picked up off the river, along with this one and this one. And yes, I do use all three of these to sharpen if need be. If I'm out somewhere and I don't have a stone and my knife goes dull because I need to cut a lot of stuff and it's sandy and dulls the blade down for some odd reason. Most rivers have something like this that you can find somewhere along it. And you can sharpen your knives decent with it. This stone here, it's pretty soft, but I've used it to put an edge on some of my less expensive knives that I'll actually use these to sharpen just to test them out, and I can get them definitely sharp enough to pop hairs off my arms. And this, I suppose I could use it to sharpen, but I won't. It's a Native American artifact. I don't know exactly what it was used for. I can tell that it's been broke. But I just put it here because I thought it looked cool and just wanted to share it. But with these edges like this here, I could sharpen a knife with it if need be, but due to this having historical value, well, maybe not much, but it's still a historical piece. So I won't use it to sharpen, but you could if need be. And then also, last but not least, one of the really important things for maintaining your knife edges is a leather strop. This gray area here, I used stone polishing grit, the finest that it came with, that gives a mirror finish to stones like that little shiny one there. And when I'm sharpening, I always keep a bottle of water handy. These things are pretty nice. Let me move my strap out of the way so I don't get it wet, because that's not good for the leather. But as you can see, you can squirt a lot, just drip it on how much ever you need, depending on what I'm doing. Once I'm done sharpening a knife, a lot of times I'll just squirt it off, rub it off my hand, and take another squirt and kind of wash off the grit and the steel that's left over from sharpening. And then, of course, the knives, they're just here for show, because I'm talking about sharpening stones. And what do you use sharpening stones to sharpen? Your mind. Oh wait, I mean knives and axes and things with an edge. And I guess your mind too, because you have to learn how to use them. So and then I've got this little cheap knife up here, made in China, and it is actually here for a reason, because I have another one. I don't have it here, but it has a wooden handle, and then it's another cheap Chinese made knife. But I figured out how to put a fairly decent edge on them. And it pertains to these stones here. And what you do is you take it like this and hold it flat to this bevel right here before you get to the edge bevel. I forget the actual terms that they use to describe what bevel goes to what. But you take this and you just kind of course, get the stone wet. I like to soak them. You just kind of rub it like that. Keep going along the edge, flip it, repeat the process. It takes an awful long time to do something like that with one of these cheap knives, but what you're doing is you're thinning out both sides here because they're not really made well at all. But you thin out those sides and it helps to get a sharper edge on it, and it holds as well as to be expected with a really inexpensive knife. And I do have this up here. You could, any rock that you can find that has a flat surface, like this has some flat surfaces, some relatively flat surfaces. Doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, especially if you're out in the wilderness and you need something to sharpen. This is a relatively flat surface. This can't sharpen with this part here or the rest of it, but you could get a knife sharp with this. But these two definitely, and you can kind of see right in here where I've used it. And right there. It's an on-the-go thing, but it works. I do have a few other stones and stuff that I've picked up off the river that work good too. You can find stones at various grits that are flat enough to sharpen with. Or improvise other things like glass. Basically anything that is harder than the steel or that has an abrasive in it, you can sharpen your knife with if you know what you're doing. Some things will take really long time to sharpen a knife with, but get the job done. I've stropped on my denim jeans out in the field to re-put an edge on my knives, and that's worked. And so I hope everybody enjoyed my sharpening stone collection. Oh, before I forget, the clove oil, when I use my cell phone to sharpen, I'll drop some clove oil on there because obviously it has electronics in it that they're no good, but I still don't want to get the battery and stuff in there wet and waterlogged, because that probably wouldn't be very good. So I use a little bit of oil and keep it away from the speaker part and this little push button part, and works good. In fact, I've used it on this knife, this knife, this knife, this knife, and then I always go to the strop afterwards. And this knife here, I've only stropped it. It came with a really sharp edge, and it's maintained it. In this knife, I've used it on the 3000, and again, this one really holds an edge. I've discovered at work I've not always had something on me to cut, some things I need to cut, and it's underground, and when you do that, you run the risk of cutting into the dirt, which I've done a time or two with this knife, and it didn't even seem to affect the edge at all. Anyways, I hope you all enjoyed. Take care. And have a nice day and be happy. Cuckoo-ca-choo.